So, it's been just over a year since Hogwarts Legacy was released upon the world, an immersive open world fantasy RPG that the fans of the Harry Potter franchise had been craving for years. A game which gave us the opportunity to become a student at Hogwarts, roam around the quite simply stunning recreation of the famous castle and grounds, alongside exploring the wider landscape including Hogsmeade, the Forbidden Forest, and more. Now, of course, Hogwarts Legacy wasn't the first video game set in the Harry Potter universe, as we've seen many movie tie-in games, which weren't that great, alongside some LEGO adaptations dating all the way back to 2001. But none of them really captured the magic and excitement we all wanted from a Harry Potter game until Avalanche Studios came along. The game itself was a critical and commercial success, with 89% of 155 critic reviews recommending Hogwarts Legacy according to OpenCritic, and it became the best-selling game of 2023 in the United States, which broke a 14-year game industry streak of either a Call of Duty title or a Rockstar Games title holding the top spot. Also, within the first 3 months of its release, it had already sold 15 million copies and raked in a whopping $1 billion, and as of January 2024, it has sold 24 million copies. But was Hogwarts Legacy truly a success that lived up to the hype, or was it a mediocre game that was clinging on to dear life on the childhood dreams of everyone wanting a truly open world fantasy RPG set in the Harry Potter universe? Well, I've been replaying the game recently to find out exactly that. I'll be going over the good stuff, the not so good stuff, and of course the bad stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get stuck in. Now, I firmly sit on the side of those Harry Potter fans who desperately wanted a game on the scale of Hogwarts Legacy to scratch that itch of a truly open world fantasy RPG game set in the Harry Potter universe. And when I first heard the announcement of Hogwarts Legacy, I was beyond excited. I mean, I grew up with Harry Potter. I've read all of the books, I've seen each film multiple times, I've played the movie tie-in games, I've visited the Universal Worlds in Orlando, hell, I've even visited the Harry Potter Warner Brothers studios in Watford near London. So, as you can see, a game like Hogwarts Legacy was incredibly high on my wishlist, but to be completely honest, I was a tad worried at the same time because, as you all know, a bunch of AAA games recently have launched rather badly. A couple of examples include Cyberpunk 2077 when it first launched as a total buggy mess. And of course, who can forget the disappointment behind Starfield being an open universe of nothingness? The list goes on. But enough of that, let's get stuck into Hogwarts Legacy, and where better to begin than Hogwarts Castle itself. Now, I'm going to put it straight out there and say that the 1800s version of Hogwarts Castle created here by Avalanche Studios is absolutely amazing, and I think they've captured the atmosphere and the wonder of it absolutely perfectly. It's as grand and as picturesque as you expect it to be. There are little hidden quirks dotted all over the place, and I was just left in awe, wandering around and just generally being there, no matter what errand or story mission I was undertaking at the time. I mean, hell, sometimes I'd even boot up the game just to walk or fly around the castle and bask in its grandeur because the attention to detail both inside and out is just fantastic. And I would definitely say there is no better way to explore Hogwarts Castle than Hogwarts Legacy. And it doesn't stop at the castle either, because Avalanche have captured the look and feel of the rest of the world as well. So whether you're wandering around the Forbidden Forest, making shopping trips to Hogsmeade, or just flying around, the immersion that they have created throughout most of the world here is truly staggering, and it was an absolute pleasure just taking all of it in. Though I do say that the world itself isn't all perfect though, and there are some areas of the map you'll find are pretty barren by comparison. And if you find yourself flying over it on your broom, it's obviously easy to pick out Hogsmeade and Hogwarts on the horizon, but the rest of it just blurs into forest and empty fields. I mean, it's accurate, but it rarely invited me to go to explore them, but credit where credit is due, the scenery does look damn good, and I just wish there was a bit more going on in some parts of the map. Now, it's all well and good going on about how simply stunning the world is here, but as we've seen before with other games, I'm looking at you, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, having a vast open world that's interesting to explore and beautiful to look at doesn't mean the game underneath is actually any good. So, before I get into the story of Hogwarts Legacy, I'm going to go on about some of the RPG elements in the game, and mainly the gear you collect along the way. So, as you explore the world of Hogwarts Legacy, you'll come across gear of different shapes and sizes, but on the grand scheme of things, the gear you find doesn't really allow you to create a build, so to speak, but you will be able to level up your stats and upgrade some of your gear within reason to help you when it comes to fighting high level enemies. Now, the looting here is not game changing stuff, but it's just good enough to spend some time tweaking your character's equipment, and for the most part, a lot of it boils down to cosmetics. One thing I do like being able to do is overwrite the appearance of any gear you've actually had in the past to gear you've got equipped at the moment, whilst also keeping its better stats. And that is something I don't think I've ever come across before. The downside here though is if you're a bit of a loot hoarder, Hogwarts Legacy is probably going to drive you absolutely bonkers. The inventory space is, for want of a better word, diabolical. You can only carry a few dozen things at any given time, and you'll be constantly finding yourself dismantling or selling previously acquired items. You'll also miss out on a bunch of stuff early on, unless of course you decide to drop out other items in favour of ones from a chest you've just unlocked. Though, as you level up, you can increase the size ever so slightly, but it's still a massive ball ache having to manage it all the time. There are of course some skill trees which you can level up as you progress through the game, and they go by the name of talents. Now these talents are split up into 5 categories, so spells, dark arts, core, stealth and room of requirement. Now these are pretty standard RPG elements, something similar to the likes you've probably seen in other games. Now I didn't particularly find myself leveling up one over the other, but it does give you a decent choice to hone your skills from one form or another. For example, you could become a master of stealth, or you could level up your talents in such a way that you become a Voldemort wannabe. It totally is up to you. But they're pretty decent. But standard RPG stuff, basically. Now, the main story in Hogwarts Legacy is going to take you anywhere from about 25 to 40 hours to complete, depending on how fast you attempt to tackle it. I myself completed it in around about 30 to 35 hours whilst doing a few side quests here and there along the way. But you could easily end up spending double that amount of time, especially if you're a completionist, because the game is absolutely jam-packed full of various side quests and activities you can do. Now, granted, some of them are a bit repetitive and your classic, go here, kill this thing, or go here, collect this thing and bring it back. But many of them feature some pretty cool characters that you meet along your journey. It is very easy to slow down and immerse yourself in the world rather than going directly from quest marker to quest marker. The novelty I found of doing that never wore off, even when I'd been sent on some seemingly pointless fetch or kill quests, which there are quite a lot of. Like, throughout the game there are some thoroughly enjoyable lighter activities you can do, including spending hours tweaking and decorating your very own room of requirement, going around catching, grooming and breeding all manner of magical creatures, practicing potion making, gardening, shopping in Hogsmeade, or taking part in an underground dueling club. Hell, you can, if you so desire, go around doing your very best Voldemort impression by learning the 3 forbidden curses, including the Killing Curse. So take time to explore alongside doing the main story because it can be very rewarding. Now, I won't give any spoilers for the actual story itself, but the basic premise is that you're a brand new 5th year witch or wizard at Hogwarts, and there just happens to be a goblin uprising going on led by one nasty bar steward who goes by the name of Ranrock. The beginning of Hogwarts Legacy pleasantly surprised me as I got easily immersed into the life of a student. So attending my first classes, learning new spells, making new friends and just generally exploring. There are a few small immersion breakers with the castle though, like there are plenty of students wandering around the halls, but you can't always interact with all of them. You also can't really interact as many things as you think you'd be able to, like you can't really sit in chairs or talk to all of the paintings. Now for me, this isn't a deal breaker, but for others it may have a more detrimental effect. The rest of the story outside of being a brand new student at Hogwarts is captivating enough to keep it interesting throughout, but at times it can feel a little repetitive and lackluster. Along your journey, you'll come across a wide variety of puzzles which you need to solve, and some of the best quests were ones that mix multi-level puzzles in nicely with combat against all sorts of evil wizards, witches, and beasts alike. Now, speaking of the combat, overall, I'd say I enjoyed it in Hogwarts Legacy. It can be fairly unchallenging in some aspects because your overly powerful 15-year-old witch or wizard will hit one of multiple enemies regardless of where you are actually aiming. And not to mention, taking on multiple enemies at any given time isn't actually that difficult. For the most part, all you need to do is dodge, use Protego, and press the cast spell button with various spells repeatedly, and you'll be absolutely fine. Now, some bad guys, gals or ghouls, however, can use shields of various colours, which does force you to change up your tactics from time to time, because some of your spells against them are basically rendered useless, and you need to break the shield with a spell matching the colour of said shield. So, when you're in the early game, coming up against new enemies to battle, it can be a bit of a challenge, as combat will differ between these witches, wizards, goblins, zombies, and so on. But it doesn't take you long to figure them all out, and then the combat can become pretty repetitive the further throughout the game you actually get. Now, rewinding it back to its launch date, Hogwarts Legacy, like many major game releases these days, suffered from some performance-related issues, including frame rate inconsistencies, lighting issues, and more. But 1 year on, as I've been playing this on the PlayStation 5 in 2024, the game has been performing pretty damn well for me. Like, it's not totally perfect, but it's certainly an improvement from last year, so you can rest assured if you're playing this on the PlayStation 5, and I'm assuming the Xbox Series S or PC, you shouldn't really have many issues, if any at all, assuming that your PC is up to spec for the game, of course. Now, I can't speak for the game's performance on the Switch, so if you're watching this and you're a Switch player, please leave a comment below on how it performs on there. So, Hogwarts Legacy is in most ways the Harry Potter RPG that I, and I'm sure many other fans of the series, have always wanted to play. The wizarding worlds created by Avalanche Studios is nothing short of remarkable, and it captures our excitement of what it's like to be a student at Hogwarts School. We get to meet new characters, do battles with new enemies, and experience Hogwarts Castle on a scale never seen before in a video game. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and it can be weighed down by its lackluster main story, poor enemy variety, and fairly repetitive combat, but absolutely none of this put me off playing through it again to experience the wizarding world in all of its glory. And sure, there is one giant elephant in the room with J.K. Rowling and her anti-trans statements, and a lot of reviews reflect that rather than the game itself. But I'm not going to get into that, so from purely a gaming standpoint, Hogwarts Legacy is a must-play, especially if you're a fan of the Harry Potter franchise like I am. You will absolutely fall in love with the worlds created here, and you will definitely be spending hours glued to your controllers, or mouse and keyboard, so if it's feasible, I would highly recommend you give it a go. You will absolutely not be disappointed. And there you have it, folks. There is my verdict on whether or not Hogwarts Legacy is worth playing just over a year on from its release, now that it has come down in price. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful, and if you're still here, it would be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. You can now also become a channel member as well, and as always, thank you for watching this video, and I shall catch you in the next one.